Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this episode of Verifiably Random, where we bring stories from entrepreneurs and builders in our ecosystem. But today we have a very special guest. We have Ben from Brale, founder, CEO of Brale, with us today to share a little bit about all things stablecoins and all things Brale. So, Ben, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you. So, first of all, to learn about Braille and the platform that you've built, stablecoin is the hot topic, of course, of the year. And so I can't wait to dig into that. And then, of course, we're also really excited to have you here because we are, for this upcoming partnership that we have where Algorand is going to be supported on Braille. And I can't wait to talk about kind of the integration and what that means for, all the builders in our ecosystem. So, let's get right to it. Before we dive into Braille, I'd love to just learn a little bit about you. What did you do before Braille, and how did you come into this crazy world of blockchain and Web3?
I've been very fortunate that I've been working around sort of like payments infrastructure and security infrastructure for a long time. I feel like early exposures are probably, 2009, 2010, early Bitcoin days. And certainly things have changed a lot since then, but it's given us a great opportunity to kind of observe a lot of market changes over that period of time. And, I've also had an opportunity to be a banker for a short period of time, an advisor on the regulatory side, done some venture investing. I feel like, man, I'm dating myself a little bit, but that's probably over like a 20-year period, but always been building companies.
Yeah. Well, you're being humble here because you also launched a really awesome payments company. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I had a heck of a ride at Dwala.
Yeah.
So we were very lucky in the early days. We kind of built it out as a way to not pay credit card fees, and ended up really kind of like going through a couple different ebbs and flows. We got into things like market infrastructure. Certainly over time, it really became like a B2B, almost like a SaaS banking as a service type platform. Powers a lot of US fintech still. Super cool company, 3 blocks down the road. Braille's actually a customer now of Dwala, which helps us actually do a lot of things on the USD transfer side much faster. And I feel like I left that company maybe even like 5 years ago. And so I had some time to kind of think about what was next. And I didn't know what it was at first, but it eventually became what is Braille.
Yeah. Yeah. So the company that you started before was Walla, and it's a big it's a payments, right? P2P, sort of peer-to-peer payments at the time. And again, as you said, it evolved into business, sort of business payments as well. But I mentioned that because I think it's such a like payments and everything that Braille is trying to do is really about connecting traditional finance payments and rails with how we sort of want Web3 to disrupt that space. So it's such a it's a big journey, if you will, but it's also like really complex as well. So Brea, yeah. So how did you, I guess, what was the inspiration? How did you sort of come to want to launch Braille? Where did that idea come from and the motivation?
I was workshopping a couple ideas with friends for maybe 6 months, and most of them were clearly bad. And I got a lot of very hard feedback about why they would not work or why they were not the right thing. And, these companies, they have to be timed correctly, and you really have to have like almost like founder problem fit too as well, I think sometimes. But once there's no not doing it. There's no not starting the company. And I think that the observations that really led to the sort of like getting it off the ground were that when you looked at the speed and cost of blockchains in comparison to like dual entry accounting systems, they were getting better, faster, cheaper than traditional systems. And so if you looked at the trend line, it was just going to like basically zero. And it wasn't quite there yet, because think about this like about 3 years ago. You could see it, but if you look at basically like the cost of a blockchain transaction today, it's like it's all trended already to zero. So the infrastructure is obviously the better tool for the job, and it's cheaper, which means you can use it. And the way to use it that we thought was very obvious was stablecoins, but at the time it was really hard, really expensive, on the regulatory side, especially to get new stablecoins off the ground. So the general thesis was like, if if the technologies and if the chains are going to become the better tool for the job, a lot more people are going to use them. And in the event that you make it really easy for people to launch them, it should create this like forcing function for the demand to go through the roof. And
Mhm.
so what we've seen to be true is that, well, both of those things are true, but I think we've misunderstood the demand in the market for stablecoins. Uh, where these things are showing up and at the speed they're showing up at with is unlike anything I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, and I apologize. I should have actually first of all introduced Braille, what it is as a product, which is it's a stablecoin issuance platform, and it abstracts away all of the complexities of issuing and managing stablecoins. I think, right? And so this was, and when you launched it, it was in 2022 or 23.
I honestly don't know. We haven't
Okay.
actually officially launched like the product. We've been so busy building in
Oh,
beta and just sort of like opening up as fast as we can. But I think maybe in March of last year is when we started really trying to open things up and launched our first customer. And since then, our goal is basically to make it as easy as humanly possible for people to launch their own stable. You can log in and launch your own stable in about a minute. We've launched more than 100 of these things on 20 plus blockchains. And so we finally sort of like built the supporting systems as well, to also, as these things are deployed, have access to new emerging ecosystems like Algorand, but also it's pre-configured with on-ramps and off-ramps. So all the things that you need to sort of like get money in and out of the ecosystem is just
mhm.
deployed automatically with the stablecoins. Um, Everything is also reverse compatible with all Circle and Paxos assets. So you can use it with whatever you're already using. You don't have to just like stop using USDC or something. That's unrealistic.
Right, right. So there are two things I guess maybe we can dig into a little bit. One is it sounds like you guys launched with, I guess you call these like design partners, if you will, right? Like you find somebody who has a need and you guys kind of built the product with them. I'd love to kind of hear, what that was and how that became. And then the second piece is all the complexities around issuing stablecoins. It'd be great to hear kind of like what Brill does in every single, the regulatory piece, the custody, the on and off ramps and the transactions, and how you guys solve that.
For the first 2 years, what we were doing is building the core technology for issuance and getting money transmitter licenses. And so at the time, there was kind of a popular opinion that stablecoin issuance was not regulated in the United States. Our view is actually it was pretty well regulated. People just didn't like the regulation structure because it was expensive and complex. But we went through and got all the licenses. So the challenging thing for us is we couldn't legally sell our services until we had the proper licensing.
And there was the NTLs that were good. Mhm.
Yep. So we have the same regulatory structure as Circle, for example.
Okay.
And, I think that is going to evolve in the United States. And also there are different jurisdictions around the world. But generally speaking, the constant is our view is that if you can deploy these things in regulated markets, the opportunity for adoption is actually greater than the unregulated markets,
Mhm.
particularly with like institutional adoption. And Genius is going to be really helpful for all of us in that way, I think. But generally speaking, it's like the first clients that we had were kind of, it was a function of timing. Who's in the market that wants to buy? And our hope out of our initial financing was to launch 2 customers. And, I think we ended up launching 200 customers or something like that by the time that we were done.
Yeah.
And demand just ended up to be very different than what we expected.
Can you talk a little bit about the first customer? Who was it, if you can share, and sort of what did you build with them?
Yeah, the first customer we onboarded, I think, was Glow Dollar. Goes by the
Okay.
ticker USD Glow. It's
Uh
a
huh.
nonprofit stable coin. And, I think that that was really interesting for various reasons. But what we learned working with them was like, what does it take to actually bootstrap these new programs in terms of what do the team members want to do in the portal? It's as simple as, adding different team members and things like that. But what does each profile actually want to do with the stablecoin program? And because portals for managing your stablecoin programs didn't really exist, you're getting early feedback. You also had clients, or we had clients that eventually they wanted to use like our signing stack. There are other clients that want to control their signing stack. So each one of these nuances can be a little bit different. Some folks want to bring their own contracts. Some people use contracts that we deploy. Every time we deploy a new stablecoin, we're deploying automated audited smart contracts. And when someone wants to bring their own, that's a different process too. So you can imagine across 100 of these programs, everybody kind of has their own needs and wants. But the early days
Mhm.
of getting the thing deployed, getting it listed in wallets, getting it listed on dexes, making sure there's adequate liquidity across the network to make other things possible, like using it in wallets and then additional on ramps, off ramps. Those things all kind of like go into making a stablecoin project successful.
Yeah. So right now on Braille, right? So anybody can come in and any project can come in and issue a stable coin using in the US though, right? Because you only have US licenses or so in the US they can issue a stable coin and it'll be regulated and compliant using leveraging the licenses that you guys have. And then once that asset has been issued, I guess can you talk a little bit about that flow? So there's the reserve you guys do. You guys manage some of the liquidity stuff and custody and all that as well.
Yeah, we do all of it.
Everything. I
Um,
know.
on the account, yeah, it's kind of like what's the best way to make it. One of the things that holding licenses gives us the ability to do is to have a network of bank partners that it looks like a correspondent bank network that is purpose built for stablecoin mints and redemptions and reserve management. And if you think about the way reserve
Mhm.
management works, it's actually pretty well defined in Genius, but also it was previously well defined as permissible investments. And so that structure is fairly well understood and it derives from 4-week T bills, money market funds that make up T bills, and then cash accounts to make sure that the money can come and go for mints and redemptions. And so our view is that the best way to build the most robust infrastructure for doing this is to have many partners because unfortunately we live in a world where it's just best to have many, many, many partners when it comes to the movement and management of funds.
Yeah, as an industry, I think we felt the pain of not having diversified our reliance on some infrastructure and banking partners. So having many
Yes.
partners makes a ton of sense. So basically, you have a network of banking partners that can hold the reserves and custody for these stable coins, and then your platform basically issues these stable coins in the different chain that you guys support. And then you also provide liquidity. Is that right? The sort of exchange functionality, and then on and off ramps, of course, for customers that want to basically buy and mint the stable coins.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
As soon as a
Okay.
new ecosystem comes online or a new stablecoin gets deployed, it's instantly available on the platform as long as whoever deploys it wants it to be. It's almost like when you deploy a repo in GitHub, it can be public or it can be private. If it's public, other people can get access to it. That's the way we think about the stablecoin deploys. If you want it to be private, and some companies do, some companies even want to deploy them on private blockchains where the permission system is totally different. And other folks want to be only on public blockchains, and some want to be on both. So I
Hmm.
think that what we found is that the technology really should be versatile so that we can, as we implement new blockchains, it's reverse compatible with everything else. So you can take funds from, Base or Solana and get them onto Algorand. But you also need the configuration with, USD transfer rails and all those good things that are just like automatically provisioned and just work out of the box. So
Yeah.
once you deploy, all their customers can get access to it. It already works with all bank accounts in America. Um, it's actually a pretty robust feature suite at this point.
Yeah. It's pretty. I saw the I was at the day zero event yesterday, where, by the way, it was such a lovely, lovely event. It's like this virtual series of events, and the format is really great because the first 2 minutes, you throw the attendees into these little groups to first meet each other for 2 minutes, and then you come back and have demos. But yeah, it just looks super super slick. Actually, one thing as you were talking about, these customers and what they're doing. I thought it would be really helpful to get your take on the different use cases that you're seeing the customers do with the stable coins that are issued on your platform. And I know you guys sort of think of it as like their ecosystem projects that can issue, but then you guys also have payment use cases. Can you talk a little bit about each of them and how Braille supports that?
Yeah, absolutely. We're not a payments company, but we sell to a lot of payments companies. And the reason why we think those partnerships are so powerful is because On one side, the companies are just trying to reduce costs. And now going on chain is a way to reduce costs. If you think about all of the work some entities go through to try and get a Fed master account, so you get the cheapest transactions humanly possible, you can get the cheapest transactions possible now on chain, and you can have it like right now. Like in less time than we've been talking, you can go get basically infinitely free transactions in comparison to the old system. So reducing costs by making use of that system is really important. But the other side is that
Mhm.
if you're implementing these into your user flows, your end users can use money the same way they are today. You can put a stablecoin in the middle and generate pretty substantial revenues for the business. And those types of economics have not necessarily always been available to payments companies, particularly not small payments companies. And so those two things, reduce costs, increase revenue, are a massive accelerator for payments companies. It's like once you
Mhm.
see those two things, you can't unsee them.
Mhm. Right. So reducing costs, meaning just using the blockchain rails for transactions, and earning revenue is sort of being able to monetize or monetize the reserves that you're holding. Is that the right way to think of it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. It
Okay.
is. It is
Okay.
the right way to think about it. Absolutely.
Cool. And then on the ecosystem side, of course, we saw that, we're going to be, of course, joining you guys, but how have you seen ecosystems leverage Braille as a platform?
There's I think a sort of like fancy answer, and then there's what actually happens.
Yeah.
And I think the fancy answer is over a long period of time, it's what contributes to having a vibrant ecosystem. Even if you already have other stablecoins on the platform, a vibrant ecosystem has many different types of stablecoins that are interoperable. And so it's just an incredible addition to help get more app developers on established ecosystems. What actually happens when the ecosystems are really, really, really new, you just need a way for the ecosystem to get stablecoins on the chain. And so when we're working with new emerging ecosystems that are a little bit like on the early side of the life cycle, like Spark or like
Mm.
Canton, what we see is that the early supporters and the early, very um, like staunch supporters of that particular network, everybody already knows each other, and they just need a way to get stablecoins into the ecosystem to start spinning the flywheel. And so we spend a lot of our time on that early side of the ecosystem, starting to spin the flywheel. And then the app developers, as the ecosystem uh, really grows up, start emerging in different use cases like payments, embedded finance. The use cases sort of repeat based on the specifics of the chain. Like I think Algorand is going to be incredible for payment companies, and I think that
100%.
once you're building
Yeah.
also in an ecosystem, you want to keep building there. It's just how it goes.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think it's actually, Algorand's been around since 2019, but as an ecosystem and for the applications that are building in Algorand, we're still quite early in terms of, having stablecoin access and having the interoperability that you're talking about. And I absolutely see both of them as a tremendous value to the projects that are building in our ecosystem, right? Just like the ability to, for example, we have a humanitarian payments app called Hisab Pay, right? If there's a way for them to leverage stablecoin issuance to sort of improve the movement of funds in the app, that would be huge. And I'm responsible for our wallet, Para wallet, and I'm envious of all of the NUSD and the Phantom Cash that have been launched as well. So I think there's just really great use cases for stable coins for the ecosystem for sure. And actually, this interoperability point is a really important one for us as well. And I saw that you guys just supported, a few additional ecosystems like Ripple and XRP, Ledger, and the Ripple uh, RLUSD, I think it was, that just joined. And can you talk a little bit about how that interoperability works behind the scenes, you know, across the different chains that you guys support?
Yeah, there are stablecoins that we don't issue that we list from Circle, Paxos, and Ripple.
Hmm.
And so the way that we manage those, it's almost like Brale is operating behind the scenes and at par exchange. That's almost like a stablecoin clearinghouse.
Hmm.
And so an easy way to think about it is we manage that so our customers can get in and out of other popular stablecoins, even if we don't issue them, because we think it's important to the ecosystem to do that, to sort of like spin the flywheel just on the overall usage and adoption of stablecoins. And so that has quite frankly been a great accelerant, even for
Mm.
companies that are building their own stablecoin, because not sometimes, many times, most of the time, they want to use one of those other stables in their workflow. And so it's also good for the brand new stablecoins. For the stablecoins that we also issue, they're all interoperable and reverse compatible with each other. So you can mint and burn cross stablecoin, cross ticker, cross ecosystem, and it's all natural supply. So you
Hmm.
don't get into a situation where you're doing sort of some of these like funny wrapping bridging,
Yeah.
not with the issuer. And so we provide all those services free of charge. And so you can mint burn across n number of variations with zero slippage at 0 basis points.
Yeah.
And so that's
Mm.
a huge accelerator for our clients. Once those are done, also, all the on ramps and off ramps also just work. So on day one, when you see Algorand on the website and in the product and in the API, you'll be able to designate just a different transfer type where you want the money to go and never have to think about any of the different programming languages or anything like that. It just works.
Yeah. The APIs for on and off ramping with the banks is super slick, and it's a game changer for sure for anybody wanting to do this. So last question I have is just a little bit. I love to kind of pick your brains on this. So you mentioned the Genius Act, which is a pretty big piece of legislation, and even though you guys kind of were planning for how to live in a regulated, stablecoin world previous to this, but now that the Genius Act is here, how does that, or does it change uh, your platform? Like, what's been an impact for Braille?
For Braille internally and how we run our services, we kind of built for this. And
Yeah.
so in that way, we feel very fortunate that what we'd hoped would happen did actually end up happening. But I do think what's changed dramatically the aperture of the opportunity with this legislation is it allows large regulated players to start engaging with stablecoins and digital assets as legal tender, to do things like hold it on their balance sheet, use it in workflows, do digital deposit tokens, and it just opens that up dramatically. And if you think about the amount of money that goes through PayPal versus the amount of money that goes through Bank of New York Mellon,
Mm.
and you multiply that across the entire like financial institution ecosystem globally, anchored in the United States with a US dollar, oh my goodness, what a time to be alive. It
Yeah.
just like it completely accelerates everything. It's like it just speed runs stablecoins in ways we never thought possible.
Yeah. 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 The demand is gonna grow, and that's maybe an understatement, of course. So for Braille, I guess what's next? What are you guys working on? I saw all the cool slick APIs where you do on and off ramps into things and all that. But can you tell us a little bit about what we can look forward to as we launch our integration with Braille?
Well, I hope a lot of brand new stablecoin launches on Algorand. And I think, what we find is that with each individual ecosystem, there's a feature set that needs to follow that's unique to that ecosystem. And so
Mm.
that's something I think in terms of what's next is we're going to be doing a lot of discovery with the ecosystem about what it needs to be successful. And so
Hmm.
based on that discovery, we'll build teams to execute against those products and features to help the ecosystem be successful. And so we'll find out if that's additional jurisdictions for non-USD value transfers or things like that, or non-USD or non-MXN backed stablecoins, which we already do. And so I think that's going to be quite exciting. And a lot of what we're doing in full transparency is we're just working really hard trying to keep up. I feel like the demand is really accelerating and we want our customers to be successful. And in order to do that, our services need to be reliable. Our systems need to be performant. We need to be doing the right things on the regulatory side. And once you put that together, we're just going to continue adding to the team and hopefully building a great company.
I love that. Well, we would love to work with you and partner with you and see how we can kind of continue to grow this integration and this adoption for the Algorand projects on Braille. One of the things that we're really looking at is how do we bring tokenized assets into our ecosystem, and not just bring it into our ecosystem, but make it more useful in DeFi. And I feel like Braille could play a really, really important role in that. I'm sure you're having these conversations with other ecosystems as well. But yeah, we would love to continue to explore how do we, expand on this partnership, and super excited for Algorand to be part of this stablecoin journey with you guys. Thank you so much, Ben, for joining with us today. And I'm sure we'll talk again soon. But, I appreciate you coming.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right. As always, I am super excited for us to cut over to our DeFi, head of DeFi, Fred Asante, to give us an update on the ecosystem. Fred, how's it going?
Hey man, thanks for having me on again. It's always a pleasure to be here. As always, I come with some great ecosystem news from the last 3 weeks, so let's just jump right in. TinyMan just shared that they crossed 130 million Tiny tokens locked in governance, their all-time high, and they also announced an increase in the platform fees. Haystack launched a browser dashboard for you to explore charts and screen tokens, and they also recently announced that they're renaming their router to the Haystack router. And talking about routers, Vestige Router also just shared an incredible milestone that they have processed over $200 million in lifetime volume since they launched the aggregator a few years ago. Wormhole's NTT documentation went live, and I know that's something that a lot of people are very excited about. So, for all the developers out there in our ecosystem that have launched tokens, make sure to check out the documentation so you can, adapt NTT and make your tokens go cross chain. And as always, Alpha Arcade launched a trading volume competition and also dozens and dozens of new, exciting, and fun markets in the last few weeks. They continue to gain a lot of traction. They're picking up a lot of heat in the ecosystem, and that's incredible to see. Red Gallery relaunched their NFT marketplace. So, for all the NFT crazies in our ecosystem, go check it out and see how the platform is doing now. Fractal TCG game launched on Steam, and they have been gaining a lot of traction recently. And Akita Inu open sourced all of their smart contracts and also deployed them on mainnet. And there are some really incredible tooling and smart contracts out there. So go make sure to check it out for all the devs out there. And Akita also launched a subscriptions platform to make it super easy for recurring on-chain payments. Pear Wallet, as always, continued to launch lots of iOS and Android updates with bug fixes and quality of life improvements. AlgoSurfed also launched several excellent quality of life updates that allow you to search your own account's assets directly from the search bar, search for verified assets, and a lot more. Very smooth experience. I highly recommend everybody to check out the AlgoSurf Explorer. And at last, but certainly not least for today, the Algorand MCP made by Go Plausible is now available in the Cursor AI store. So for all the everybody jumping in on the AI hype, you can all check the Algorand MCP server directly in the Cursor AI store. So Min, that's all I have for today. Just for some news from the last few days. Thanks for having me on, and back to you.
Always exciting. Thank you so much, Fred. Appreciate you as always. And that wraps it up for us in this episode of Verifiably Random. Thank you so much, Ben, for joining us. And thank you, Fred, for giving us an update. And we'll see you around next time. Thank you.